content that is especially relevant to the semantic meaning of the words that have been put into this box. And so in this case, you can see that here's an article from 2024 in Helion, where the most relevant piece of content from that document that backs up this particular assertion is a paragraph from the results section. So what people are telling us is that, number one, getting an answer to a research question that is backed by research, and you can see that whenever a generated assertion has been presented here, there is always going to be a reference to an underlying source document. And knowing that assertion and that answer are coming from the full text, and being able to see immediately the snippet of full text from which that assertion came, that just with that alone, we have done a really great favor for researchers who, in the previous document-based process of finding and accessing content, would involve putting a couple of keywords into Google, looking at a bunch of document titles as a result of this, having to divine with their own two eyeballs whether that document is likely to contain information that's interesting to them. And then if they do believe so, going into that article and reading through often 12 to 15 full pages of text in a very thick journal article to find what it is they're looking for. And people can see, and people are telling us in our user testing, that this is potentially a step change. If they can use this functionality to get almost a direct line to the insights that really matter to them, first in the form of a summary response that gives them an overview of what they're likely to find related to their question in the literature, but then especially by presenting them the snippets immediately in that interface, that could really revolutionize how they go about doing their research. So there's a couple of elements on this page, and I'll take you through a few of them and just explain our thinking and why we built them, and then I'll show a few more things. So it begins with a summary response, which we thought initially that this would be the kind of thing that would sort of meet people's needs immediately, that maybe they wouldn't even need to go read these papers, but we're finding that the real value of this for a real research use case or a real education use case is not so much in meeting their immediate needs, although it does often give them certainly something that they can copy and take with them and maybe paste into a Word document. What it really functions as is it's a much better way than a document result list of giving them an idea of what actually is out there buried in all that full text content and all those abstracts from all those journals that might be interesting to them for their question. And oftentimes it gives them an idea if they're even asking the right question, which is a huge problem to begin with. We initially thought that we would provide that summary response and nothing else. And what we learned very quickly is that no, people are still very interested in what were the papers that came back. But what they would like from each of those papers is not necessarily an abstract from the paper that is the thing that the author wrote, but rather a summary of what does this paper have to say that is about the question that I have. So we are also using generative AI in this interface to basically create what amounts to a mini abstract that is hyper focused on what is the question that you have, and how does this document address your very specific question. And again, of course, those any time where there's a generated snippet, we are working very hard to ensure that the underlying source text that was used to generate it is never more than one click away, so that people can always feel like they're in control and that they're not just being asked to believe whatever the large language model is telling them. So that's a very important part of the interface. We extended the interface also to articles. So I'm going to click on this reference to view the article on ScienceDirect. And again, we're seeing that people are regularly needing to go and look into the primary literature and go look into the article itself for more context. So what we heard from people is there a way that you can sort of do those same things of summarizing what's really interesting for me also in articles? So we built something we call the Reading Assistant. And this is accessible, again, to people who are in the beta directly within the article to ask any kind of question. But when you're coming from the generative AI question answer tool, we bring the question that you asked with you, and we use, again, a large language model. In this case, we're using one of the Claude models from Anthropic to read within the article and find, again, summarize from the article, from multiple points in the article, what this article has to say about your specific question. And again, I want to just emphasize that when we talk about safe and responsible use of AI, we are very adamant that whenever we are providing a generated assertion, we are giving people one-click access to the piece of text that was used to generate the assertion. So this uses a technique on both sides called retrieval augmented generation. What that means is we are looking within either the knowledge base of ScienceDirect or the article, finding pieces of content that we believe are highly relevant to the question, and then feeding those to the large language model and saying, given these assertions coming from this document, can you please summarize your response with various other factors to this question? And you can use this for lots of things. You can it's not always about search. It will take simply commands such as summarize the methods of the article, which we see a lot of people doing as well. And this is the kind of thing, again, that thinking back to the use cases that we innovate on, reading and evaluating, we're finding that people are really, really excited about being able to access a tool like this, because it gives them a way that is better than the static table of contents, and certainly better than scrolling up and down through mountains and mountains and mountains of paper and text and data and things like that to get to what they need immediately with a click, and to help them again to move forward with whatever it is they're doing. In this case, either getting the information that they need and extracting the insight directly, or convincing themselves that yes, this is enough, and now I'm going to take this PDF away and incorporate it into my research. So switching back again to the question and answer screen, what we're also hearing from many people, especially in the past 2 months of testing, is that people love the idea that they can ask questions and get answers. People love the idea of getting summarizations from papers. They see that this, again, can help them connect the discovery and the reading and the organization workflows in a much better way than the kind of linear process they're working with before. But they're increasingly asking us to generate output that they can use directly, and maybe even take some of the work off of their back. And one of the things that we came across in a user test that I found really exciting was having someone go through and show us how they discover content and what's the process they follow. This individual hit on a review article and scrolled down through it and found a table that summarized the experiments conducted in a number of papers that were relevant to the topic that the review article was on. And this person said, see, I love when I find someone who's done this, because it's like they've done the work for me. And people create these kinds of representations of content like that. And this is something that really is right, we feel, in the wheelhouse of a large language model guided by well thought out design with an understanding of the research process. We are able to create representations of knowledge like that, where we take all the articles that were used to generate that summary answer for that user's question, and we take their question, and we're using large language models to go through and actually extract and represent structured information about what was the experiment done in that paper, or what were the experiments done, what were the author's stated goals, what did they use, how did they do it, and what were the results they got out of it. These are things that we know people create on their own. People spend potentially sometimes days or weeks pulling together papers and studies that are relevant to their research, manually extracting this, putting it in a table, and we can do this for people in a matter of seconds. And that is extremely exciting. And this is something that has been live as a prototype in this tool, again, in our private beta for the last couple of weeks. And we're seeing really, really great feedback from it in terms of how people believe it can be useful for them in their work, whether it's research or education or something else. And we're hearing people say that, for example, they want to add their own columns to this, or they want to export it. And so we believe that we're really onto something with this. If we can continue to think about how we can apply generative AI and large language models, not just to, again, summarize things and give people quick overviews of stuff, but to really go off and do things for people. And it might just be a draft that we can create. Maybe this table won't be perfect for that user, but if it gets them a head start and saves them an hour or a day of work, then that's all work that can be, that's time that can be applied to doing, again, what it is that they really want to do, which is, advance their own original research or get them to their next stage in their educational journey. And I can think of no better way to spend our time than helping people do